Have you ever thought about the legacy that you're going to leave? Have you ever wondered what people are going to say about you after you're gone? I know that sounds so morbid to think about, but I want to talk about the intentionality behind the legacy that you're leaving, mama. So stay tuned for this episode because I'm going to give you some practical pointers and tips to leave a legacy that you can be really proud of. Hey, friend, welcome to the Milk and Honey with Lemon podcast. Do you want financial freedom and to really step into your God-given leadership? Do you find yourself up late at night Googling leadership, that Proverbs 31 woman, or maybe even motherhood and business? Do you have these big, beautiful, ambitious goals, only to feel stressed about who it is that God's called you to be? And then when you finally get some quiet time with the Lord, here come the kiddos to interrupt again, and you're feeling disconnected from God. Hey, I'm Lemon, and I too was a woman who knew she was meant for something more. While I love being a wife and a mother, I felt really frustrated and disconnected because I didn't feel like I was walking in purpose. I wanted to have a deep heart connection with God and figure out who I was outside of this high and holy calling that He has given me. What else was my purpose? And I kept telling myself, there's not really a place for me in the kingdom outside of being a wife and a mother. And maybe I could figure out what I'm supposed to do when the kids graduate from high school. Until I really found out how to become this Proverbs 31 woman through leadership development. So on this podcast, you're going to find financial freedom, a lot of leadership growth, and some motivation so you'll be able to do all the things God has called you to do with ease. Hey friend, before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you, I'm going to throw a lot at you. I'm going to share a lot of tips and tricks, and you're probably going to want to take notes. Fear not, stress not. I've put all of the things I'm going to talk about in a handy dandy PDF for you. All you have to do is go to lemonprice.co/community, and you can snag all of the tips that I'm going to share with you today. So let's dive in, friend. Hey friend, so when I was thinking about this episode, which is the end of our leadership series for the fall, which is crazy, by the way. This episode's coming out right before Thanksgiving. And so I thought it was perfect timing to talk about legacy. And as people are moving into 2024, what is it that you want? What do you want people to think about? What do you want people to know about you? And so I teach this class called the Radiant Leadership Academy, 16-week biblical leadership class where I'm in my third round of teaching it. Technically, I've taught it four times, and I've taken it 3 times. So I truly love this program to the umpteenth degree. There's another one starting in January, so I'll just throw that out there. But part of our homework this week was, at least at the time that I'm recording this, it was to write your eulogy. And everybody's face was like, what do you mean? And it's so funny how, y'all, I planned this episode out 3 months ago. And I did not know I was going to be teaching Radiant Leadership Academy, and definitely did not know at the time of recording that I would be doing this homework with them. I knew this was the homework at this particular week, but I didn't plan it like that. I wish I could say I did. I wish I could say I was very fancy and very prepared, but I wasn't. This was totally a God thing that they just happened to line up at the exact same time. And so part of the homework this week was to write your eulogy. And when I meet with everybody on Tuesday, they're going to share what they learned from that experience. But we were really talking about, what is your legacy? What do you want people to say about you after you go? What do you want to sow into? What are the things that you want to be remembered for? What values and lessons do you want to pass down to your children? We're going to pass it down to their children, ideally. So we're not just going to explore the questions, but we're going to find some answers. We're going to create a plan, and we're going to build a legacy together. How does that sound? How does that sound to build a legacy together? And so I'm very type A. And so I have this structured guide to really help you. And this is what you're going to find in my community. So if you go to lemonprice.co/community, you can get all of this in a handy dandy PDF download. You don't have to opt into anything. You don't have to do anything. You just have to go get it from the community. So the first thing that I want you to do is clarify your core values. And I had my friend Jen Rogers ask me this actually a few weeks ago. We were in San Diego, and there was an issue that arose on my team. And it wasn't like a big issue, but it was definitely an issue that I had to tackle. And I handled the issue and everything was fine. And again, it wasn't like some inter-team fighting or anything like that. It was really about protecting somebody's triggers and trauma and just being really intentional and aware of what was going on. And so I handled that. And Jen said to me, we were sitting in bed that night, and Jen said to me, she said, as a leader, what are your values? What are the things that you can say, I base my decisions on these values. These are the values of my team. And so she asked me this, and I had to really think about it. I'm like, okay, what are the things that I value? I value honesty. I value integrity. I value love and compassion. Like, I value these things, and I want to pass those on. And so what I want you to do is, what are your non-negotiable values? What are the things for you that you can base your decisions based off of? I love that Jen asked me this question, because it really put into perspective, because I know what they are for my family. I know my family values. This is something my husband and we talked about before we ever got married. And it's honestly how we knew we were supposed to get married. We got married after 3 months of seriously dating. And honestly, it's because we just knew. We knew that our values were completely aligned. We talked about things like what color sink we want, and what is our decorating style, and how would we want to parent together? How do we want to handle conflict together? And so we base, I would say, all of our decisions based on the values that we have set for ourselves with our family. And so I want you guys to list out your values, and I want you to ensure that they are the compass guiding your journey. Are you basing your decisions as a family or as a wife, as a mother, based on your non-negotiable values? So if you need to pause me and go write those down, go and do it. That's totally fine. But I want you to really think about this. I want you to ask God, what are some of my non-negotiables? What are the things that I care most about? Ask your husband if you're married. What are our non-negotiables as a family? Talk to your children. What are their values? What are the things that they value? And I don't mean like their iPad or an Xbox or something. What are their non-negotiable life values? Ask them, because that will also be a reflection to you as to what it is you've been passing down to them and the influence of their friends. So ask yourself, ask your family, ask your children, what are some non-negotiables that we have, and write them down. Next, we've got to live life with integrity. So now that you've figured out, hopefully you paused me, you wrote those down, we have to live in alignment with our values. We have to walk the walk and talk the talk. We can't just say, I value honesty and integrity, if we don't live that way, if that is not authentically who we are. And if there's things that you want to live by, I want to say this. If there's things that you want to live by, if there are things that you consider to be a value, but you're like, I'm not perfect in that yet, but I want to be, it's okay to authentically walk into that and to say, I don't always get this right, but I'm trying. That's integrity. And so your legacy is built daily through actions and decisions. It is not built over a couple of grand gestures. It is built over daily decision-making and daily behavior. Your children, especially, if you want to leave them a legacy of faith, of true faith, not faithfulness, and I could do a whole episode on that. If you want to leave them a legacy of faith, when your children are playing, let's say they're playing in the living room with you, if you've got littles, are you scrolling TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever? Or do you have your Bible out? Are you putting on worship music when you're cleaning the house? For me, I'm putting on podcasts when I'm doing the dishes or anything like that. Or I'm putting on, I love Right Now media. So I'm putting on a Bible study while I'm sitting here doing the dishes, and I can soak that in, and then I can reprocess it later. But that's what my kids see. And I wasn't always good at that. I want to be really clear. I was not always good about that. I was really good at scrolling on TikTok. I was really good at doing things that I said that I wanted to live a certain value, but I wasn't living it out through daily habits and activities, and especially not daily habits and activities that my kids see. And so I've had to be really intentional to make sure that they can see me showcasing and highlighting the things that my husband and I said are important to us. They come to big church with us, and that's what they call it. They call it big church. But they'll come and they see their dad and I worshiping together. And so this weekend, it was so beautiful, actually. My youngest, so they both came because our oldest is almost in middle school. So he's like, I'm too old to go to like youth church situation, like kids church. And so I want to come with you guys because that's where all the middle schoolers and high schoolers are. And so he's getting used to that, and that's fine. And so, of course, then the youngest was like, well, I'm not going by myself either. And he's about to be 10. So, like, we're close to that age, right? In a year and a half or so, he'll be in middle school. So we're like, they're at that age. And so they came to church, and my husband and I are front row church people. We always have been. We always will be. If I sit in the back, I'm going to get distracted. I just know myself. I have to sit in the front row. I got to be in it to win it. So we're sitting up there and we're worshiping, my husband and I'm focused. I'm lasered in. I'm at church. That's my time. The mom hat comes off and I'm focused on my time with God. If you're old enough, my feeling is like, if you're old enough to come to big church with me, then like you're old enough to like manage yourself. Like you don't need to ask me to go to the bathroom type of a situation. Like it's me and Jesus right now. Back off. And so my husband and I, we're like deep in worship. And all of a sudden, so my 9-year-old standing in front of me, like I said, he's almost 10. All of a sudden I see him lifting his hands and pray, and he is just belting out. And I was like, oh my, it was so beautiful to watch because it wasn't some big grand gesture that did that. And their faith is completely their own. It's really beautiful to hear them talk about their faith and their experience with God and the way God answers their prayers and things like that. But for them to see, oh, hey, this is how mom and dad worship and stuff. And so I can do that too. And so it was just like this little shift where I was like, okay, they are watching what we're doing and they get to see this is important to us. And now they're living it out and it's their own. And so I want to just encourage you in these daily actions and decisions. And you're not always going to get it perfect. And that's okay too. I think it's really important to let your family, your children, your people see sanctification in real time. And I'm going to get into that here in a minute, but let them see sanctification in real time. I don't always get this right, but that's walking in integrity, is saying I don't always get it perfect, but I have a savior who can help me and I can turn to God and he can get me through this. And he can help me walk in with those core values that I said I had. Okay, that was a very long rant. The third thing you're going to want to do to leave a legacy is create meaningful relationships. In a world where it's really easy to heart a video or a picture and send a very general DM and all those things, we're not actually investing time and love into building connections that endure and flourish. We're not creating a legacy through our relationships. Your legacy is in the relationships and it is in the depth of those relationships. How deep are you going in that relationship? Is it a surface level friendship? I have a friend. Her and I have been friends since I was 6 months old. I know literally everything there is to know about this woman. Everything. I know her and her family so insanely, right? I know all of her siblings. I know her parents really well. I know her grandparents. I know her aunts and her uncles and her cousins, and I know them all. I know all of them. Her children refer to my children as their cousins. I am their aunt. Like my husband is their uncle, and it's the same with them. It's Aunt Jasmine. And there is a depth to our friendship, to our relationship. I consider her family. And the legacy lives on through our friendship, but then through our children. Our children are seeing what we're doing. Our children are forming relationships, and they're going to continue to pour in, right? Like I know her grandparents. I know her aunts and her uncles and all of these people because we have a depth to our relationship. And so the legacy that they leave will live on through us and then through our children because there is a real depth to the relationship. And so I want to ask you, what are you doing to invest in people? Something my church says is that they exist to invest in and invite people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And the first part of that is to invest in. You have to invest time and energy and effort and love, right? Jesus says that people will know you're my disciples by how you love one another. And so how are you loving one another? And really loving people. I don't mean surface level, I love you. How are you loving people? When you can create these deep and meaningful relationships, that's where your legacy lives. All right. And I said I was going to talk about this in a minute, but you have to share your journey, right? This is number 4. I've got 7 things. Your story is unique and it's powerful. Something my friend Molly Trotter Gomez always says is your story is meant to be mentorship for somebody else. And so be willing to share your story. Be willing to open up about your experiences and not just the victories, right? Not just the highlight reel, but the challenges that you had. And then how you overcame those challenges and the lessons you learned and what is God teaching you through the struggle, through the sanctification process. Because the truth of the matter is your story has the potential to inspire and guide other people on their journey. And you will never know. You are never going to know who is watching and gleaming from your story. Just this weekend, I had somebody from high school reach out to me. I have not spoken to this girl in 15 years. We didn't even really talk in high school. We just didn't run in the same circles, and that's okay. But we've stayed friends on Facebook, and she reached out to me and she said to me, hey, I've been watching your journey for a long time. And I know God has something more for me. And whatever it is you're doing, I want what you're doing. Because I've seen what you've been walking through and how God has shown up in your life. And I want that too. Because I didn't shy away from the hard stuff either. I shared both, the highlights and the hard. If you ever go follow me on Facebook or connect with me, you'll see I share it both. Because people need to know that your life is not perfect, but God is working in and through it. And there is always something good that comes from it. In the Hebrew language doesn't have a word for tragedy. Because in that culture, if it is still in a tragic place, quote unquote, then God is not done with it. God has not redeemed it yet. God's not finished. And so share your journey because people need to hear it, my friend. Okay, number 5 on the list. We have this one and 2 more to go. When you're talking about your legacy, you have to be a mentor and a guide to other people. The Great Commission says you're to go out and create disciples, and that is not meant for evangelists. That is meant for every single person. That is not meant for just missionaries. You are a missionary. You have the job of being a disciple maker. And so you really have to step into that role of being a mentor and really share your wisdom and your knowledge and to really help other people figure out what their path is and to find their purpose. If you're sitting here and you're like, Lemon, I have no idea how to do that. That sounds scary. I don't know how to do that. Then I have something for you for 24 hours. I will give you free access to 2 of my courses, actually, along with like hundreds of others. But I have a course on how to find your purpose. So if you're like, I don't even know what my purpose is, then this is a place for you to go. Or if you're like, hey, I need to really step into discipleship and mentorship and like, how do I start that? How do I find my own? Because the truth of the matter is everybody should have somebody mentoring them and they should be mentoring somebody else. And so if you're like, how do I even do that? What does that look like? Go to the show notes or you can go lemonprice.co/sneak peek and you can check it out for 24 hours. You could take my Finding Your Purpose course or you could take Mamas in the Word and you could skip down to, I have a whole section on discipleship and mentorship and how do you find those relationships. So go and check those out. They are full of PDFs and things to help you really figure out how to step into your mentorship and discipleship relationship. Go to lemonprice.co/sneak peek, not .com, .co. So go and check that out. Go check out what we have to offer. I'm very excited about it. But really, the truth of the matter is, like I said, your story is meant to be mentorship to somebody else. And the only way to do that is to step in and be a mentor. And the only way to do that is to practice mentorship and discipleship and pouring into other people. Which brings me to number 6 is practice generosity. We just finished this in Radiant Leadership Academy too. We were talking about being generous and just pouring out and where are we investing our time and our talents and our money and all of these things. Generosity is a key pillar of legacy building. So find causes and missions close to your heart and contribute with open hearts and hands. Because this doesn't have to be financial either. I want to be really clear. Is it great? 100%. Ministries need money. They just do. Does God need our money? No. Ministries do, right? Because it's people running it. And things cost money. That's just the way it works. So is it great if you can contribute financially? Absolutely. Is it great if you could serve? Absolutely. But there are so many ministries that would gladly take you and would gladly use your support. So I think about some ministries I've worked in. There's a crisis Christian pregnancy center near me. And for a couple of months, I was mentoring over there. I was serving over there, and it was great. The mentorship time didn't work with my schedule, and which is fine. I was there for a season, and now that season is over. I still love that ministry. I still donate to that ministry. That ministry is very important to me. But something that I've been really passionate about lately is food insecurity. So there is Loaves and Fishes. My church partners with Loaves and Fishes. And once a year, they fund this thing called Backpack Buddies. I've talked about it before. And God really put it on my heart this year that next year I would be able to match the ministry fund. Right. So my church then donated $22,000. And I said, okay, God, you're telling me that in the next year I will have enough to fund that ministry. And God really spoke to me that this ministry is going to have to increase. There's going to be a bigger need for it next year because of the economy. And so it's going to take generosity to fund it. And I was like, okay, God, I hear you. I'm trusting you. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I trust you with that. I think about my friend Kate Adams, who she felt like she was called to do missionary work. And she was a nurse, and she's, I don't know what this means. And so then somebody tells her, hey, we're going on a medical mission. We actually need a nurse, and it's $2,000. And she was like, I don't have $2,000. And starts going through the list of reasons she can't do it. And then somebody who had the provision heard about what was going on and paid for her mission trip. Because of that, they decided to go on a mission trip too, because they loved what was happening, which then inspired somebody else to go on a mission trip that they knew. And now those people are full-time ministries, or they're full-time missionaries. And it is because of their generosity to one person, it inspired something in them, which inspired something in somebody else. And now they are full-time missionaries. And it is because of the generosity that they are building a legacy. They built a legacy in Kate. They built a legacy for themselves and their family. And they started a legacy for somebody else who is now out starting a legacy in another country for other people. Generosity can do that. So make generosity a part of your legacy building. And then finally, friend, regularly connect with God. Seek his guidance on everything through prayer and meditating on the word. And I don't mean that in this new age weird way. God says to meditate and to feast on his word. Think about the things he's telling you. BlueLetterBible.org is a beautiful place to go if you really need help with the ability to exegete what is happening in scripture and to get context. Seek his wisdom and guidance as you work on building a legacy that honors him and serves the kingdom. Because ultimately, that's what our legacy is for. It is about glorifying God. And so make sure you're partnering with him in that process. I know I threw a lot at you today. And so remember, you can get a downloadable PDF with all of these tips at lemonprice.co/community. So make sure you join our community and grab your copy, my friend. And that, my friends, wraps up this fun session on building a legacy. I want you to remember your legacy starts right now with the choices that you make and the love that you share. Do not forget to head over to lemonprice.co/community to join our incredible community of women and to download the PDF guide with all the tips we discussed today. Together, let's build a legacy that lasts, impacts, and glorifies God. Hey friend, what a joy it has been to share today's journey with you. If you found a spark of inspiration or a nugget of wisdom that resonated, would you bless someone else by sharing this episode with them? It could be the encouragement they need to step into their purpose and calling. Also, if you could spare a moment to leave a review, it would mean the world to me. I really appreciate your feedback, and it really helps our community grow. Remember, the road to discovering God's call for you isn't one you have to walk alone. So join me again next Monday for another episode where we'll continue to explore the depths of leadership and the heights of our heavenly calling. Until then, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep trusting in his plan. God bless you, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye, friend.